Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
Who's number 4? And Alabama returns to the playoff, and so we have another unprecedented situation as Florida State winds up at number 5. And Florida State is the first undefeated champion from a Power 5 conference to fail to make the field.
That was Sunday. You see it. I guess don't mess with Bama. I mean, after all, this is Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Visit Tuscaloosa. I'm Gary Harris, Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, and it's official. The Crimson Tide is in the college football playoff again, but Rodney, to get there, it wasn't easy. First of all, they had to take care of business against the Georgia Bulldogs in Atlanta on Saturday at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the SEC championship game. And last time I checked going into that one, Rod, Georgia had won 29 games in a row and hadn't lost since losing to Alabama 2 years ago in that same game. But Alabama football did what it had to do to give itself an opportunity. The Crimson Tide upset Georgia 27-24 on Saturday. I was there to witness it and give Georgia credit. They're a really fine team, and they never made it easy. But Alabama outplayed them on both lines of scrimmage. Every time Georgia landed a punch, Alabama counterpunched, and eventually, with a couple of first downs, Rodney, after Georgia cut it to 3, that was the knockout blow. Bama wins its 9th SEC championship under Nick Saban, the 30th in program history. Nobody else is even close. That's a big deal. I've said it on my radio show this week. Winning the SEC championship is still a big deal. Jalen Milroe was named the game's MVP after leading the team to its 11th consecutive victory. Milroe had 221 total yards, 192 in the air, 13 of 23. It probably wasn't his best game. It certainly wasn't his best statistical game, but like we say about Milroe, he's got the clutch gene. Jermaine Burton and Jam Miller caught touchdown passes from Jalen in the game. Roydell Williams led the ground attack. Isaiah Bond just playing great, 5 receptions for 79 yards. On defense, Terry and Arnold had 6 tackles, including a half tackle for loss and a pass breakup. Special teams, Will Riker became the NCAA's all-time leader in points. He totaled 9 in the game and has 539 in his career. With the win, Alabama got that number 4 playoff spot. They'll face Michigan, the number 1 seed, in the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day in a college football playoff semifinal. It is number 3 Texas and number 2 Washington in the other semifinal at the Sugar Bowl. All right, Rodney, let me bring you in. Let's start with, before we look back at the season as a whole, just this game. Alabama, I know they barely got by Auburn in the Iron Bowl, but that was the same case 2 years ago. They were ready to play on Saturday.
They really were. Well, of course, obviously, Georgia came out and had that great opening drive. Alabama kind of changed some things defensively. And I thought, Gary, for the most part, after that first initial drive that Georgia had, Alabama controlled the game. I mean, you just felt that Alabama, you got a really comfortable feeling, even though the game was close, but you liked the way Alabama was playing, the way they were controlling the game. And you know what? The thing that really stuck out to me, Gary, was on those short yardage situations. Alabama stopped Georgia. Alabama's defense came up really, really big in those situations, and I think that was big because this is a physical game. We talked about it was going to be a physical game at the line of scrimmage, and I think that's where Alabama won this game. Yeah,
you're right. I mean, Alabama's always been physical, but there had been a thought process in the last few years that Georgia had kind of become the big bully on the block. But when you're Alabama, you know how to answer the bell, and I think that was the key, Rodney. You said it, line of scrimmage game, and Alabama was more physical in the line of scrimmage. Alabama made the first downs when they had to make them, and as you said, they stuffed Georgia enough times to get the win. It was just a total team effort. Offense, defense, and special teams. And, Nick Saban won't say it about himself, but this is like, how do you count up the moments that he's had as a coach, but I put this right up there at the top, what he's been able to do with this team this year.
Well, I think when you look back to the Texas game, then the South Florida game the next week, I mean, I think even the most optimistic fans, Alabama fans, were very, very concerned where this team was. Again, you didn't even know who your quarterback was going to be coming out of that third game. They decided to go ahead and go with Milroe, roll the dice with him. He was the guy, and the way he responded, the way he developed, and the leadership that he provided throughout the season, Gary, then the MVP in the SEC championship game. And again, I think the players really rallied around Jalen Milroe and his leadership throughout the season. I think that was really big.
Let's talk about the defense, because you and I said last week, we think Alabama's going to score some points on Georgia. The offense was going to score some points. The key is, could you hold Georgia down? They really did. I mean, 7 points in the first half. I thought the game was won when Alabama got that touchdown right before halftime and Georgia couldn't answer. But the defense in the second half, as you said, made plays when it had to make them. And because the offense didn't score for 10 points in the second half. And really the defense answered the bell.
Look, I think there's the play right there. That's the first defensive play that Alabama made that kind of started setting the tone, was when Malachi Moore made that play on Georgia's second possession, because, Georgia marched down the field very easily in that first drive. But, again, they got some pressure on Carson Beck. What did we talk about last week? There you see a sack right there. We talked about how he only been sacked 8 times. How was Alabama going to get some pressure on him? They did it. They got the pressure, Gary, mainly with 4 guys rushing. Allowed them to cover in the secondary. Great plays in the secondary. There you saw Terrion Arnold. Trey Amos, when he came in the game for an injured Kool-Aid McKinstry, made some big plays. Again, I think the coverage was outstanding. The linebackers played really, really well.
Some Bama notes. Caleb Downs, a finalist for the Sean Alexander Award, the former Bama running back. That's for the top freshman. Jalen Milroe, a finalist for the Manning Award for top quarterback, and Justin Eboigbe has been named a semifinalist for the AP CSC Comeback Player of the Year Award. One final thought, Rodney, before we get to Coach Talk. This team's improved in so many ways. What do you think is the biggest key as to why this team improved so much from early in the season to where it's at right now?
I think there's probably a lot of those keys. We talked about the decision. We're going with Milroe. I think they kind of curtailed some things to what he does really, really well. But, Gary, I think one thing that really stands out to me, it was a change in the offensive line with Jaden Roberts moved in at right guard in that Texas A&M game. I think that made a big difference in that offensive line, and they continued to get better.
Sometimes you got to go beast mode. Bama did. All right, now it's time for Coach Talk. Nick Saban was asked about his thoughts on the teams that did and did not make it into the college football playoffs. Here's what Coach Saban had to say.
There's a lot of good teams out there. Florida State's certainly a good team, and to go undefeated in their league. And it's unfortunate that some good team had to get left out, but I really think that our team earned the right to be here. He beat number 1 Georgia in the SEC championship game. They've worked hard all year to improve, and I'm really proud of what they've been able to accomplish together as a team.
No doubt about it. Alabama should be in. It is disappointing if you're a Florida State fan. I get it. But this is a flawed system. It's always been a flawed system. And it's amazing that since 2014, this is the first year that we've had a logjam like this. But, when you've got 5 or 6 or 7 really strong teams, only 4 can make it. And, if you leave Alabama out, there's, going to be angst and discord. The difference is, even though Florida State was undefeated, they aren't the same team. Anybody that watched them play down the stretch, once Jordan Travis went out, recognizes that team is limited offensively. And whether you like that or not, it's a part of the game, Rodney, and that's certainly a factor in where these two teams are at the present time.
Yeah, no, I think, and it's not just those teams. I mean, Texas was right in the middle of this, too. And look, I think when you look at the 4, I personally, Gary, I think the one team that was left out that is one of the best 4 teams is Georgia.
No doubt.
That's obvious. But at the same time, under the circumstances, given the circumstance, you weren't going to have 2 SEC teams in. I think they got the best 4.
Yeah, Texas got a loss, and they got in, too. And I know the win over Alabama is why nobody's talking about them, but they got in over Florida State as well. And, again, this could have been an expanded playoff this year. Some conferences fought against that, and commissioners. The ACC was one of them.
Yeah.
So, if we'd had 12 teams this year, everybody would have gotten in that thinks they deserve to be in. All right, let's move on. Alabama redshirt sophomore quarterback Tyler Buchner entering the transfer portal on Monday. That's really not a surprise, but how about this, Rodney? He says he wants to look into playing lacrosse. He was a great high school lacrosse player out in the San Diego area. In fact, he was committed to Michigan to play lacrosse back in the 8th grade. It doesn't mean he's going to give up football. I just think he wants to keep his options open. But, he was at Notre Dame. He got beat out there. By the Wake Forest transfer.
Yeah, Sam Hartman.
And then came to Alabama hoping to be the starting quarterback. That didn't work out for him. So he's a great lacrosse player. Yeah, keep your options open. I don't blame him.
Yeah, again, I think, I thought he was a really athletic kid, and it just didn't really work out for him here, Gary, because of the development, I think, of the quarterbacks they have.
Of course, who has one of the best lacrosse programs in the country? Notre Dame.
Yep.
maybe he'll go back to the Irish and play lacrosse. But anyway, seems like a super young man. And who knows? I mean, he hasn't ruled out staying with football. He could even wind up staying at Alabama. We'll just kind of wait and see. Also, Ty Jones-Bell, the reserve wide receiver, has been hurt this year. He went into the portal on Monday as well. Well, still to come on Tyler Insider Television, we'll hear from Nate Oates and what the Bama basketball team needs to work on as they get ready for a brutal stretch against Purdue, Creighton, and Arizona. That's 4, 10, and number 1. And we'll recap last night's win over a familiar face, Brian Harsin and Arkansas State, as Bama hoops, as I said, getting ready to play 3 top 10 teams back to back to back. And we'll be getting your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, the phone number 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Give us a ring, Tyler Insider Nation. We want to hear from you. It's coming up in just a bit right here on TITV.
As far as us, I mean, we needed to get this win. We needed to play better on defense. We did that. They exposed a few things that we need to work on. Our defensive rebounding needs major work before we play Purdue.
And we're back here on TITV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Visit Tuscaloosa. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Well, Alabama basketball off to a good start. They're 6-2, which is really good. They played some tough teams. They lost to Ohio State. They lost to Clemson, but they haven't gotten into the meat of the schedule yet. But last night, it was a fun night. Alabama beat Arkansas State, but there's Brian Harsin, the former Nate Oates assistant, now the head coach at Arkansas State. Jeff Puritan hired him. He's the AD. Jeff Puritan used to be associate AD here at Alabama. A lot of ties there. And Alabama wanted to be really friendly with Harsin. They didn't want to be too friendly to his team, Rodney, and they weren't. The Tide led by as many as 31. They got up double digits early. Now, in fairness to Arkansas State, too, they had like 4 starters out, and they played hard. They played really hard, but Alabama was just too good here. But here is what's coming up, Rod. They've got a game Saturday against number 4 Purdue. Then they play number 10 Creighton. Then they play number 1 Arizona. So we've already seen against Ohio State and Clemson. Those were both, you know what they had in common? Experienced, physical, big, powerful teams. Alabama, just quite frankly, didn't match up in the paint. They're about to see that. Nobody's more physical than Purdue. They got Zach Edey, 7'4", about 300 pounds. What does this Alabama team need to do to be better prepared for what they're about to face than maybe they were against Ohio State or Clemson?
That's a great question, Gary. I mean, I think maybe hopefully the experience that they got in those other 2 games have kind of, helped them out. And I think hopefully that the kind of the way they've played together. Again, this is a bunch of new players here. I mean, obviously, Nate Oates has had to kind of retool everything. So hopefully maybe that experience will show up a little bit that they gained from those 2 games.
Yeah, and you need to get Nick Pringle back. I know he's suspended for a contract detrimental to the team. They need him against some of these big bodies they're about to face. All right, on the women's side of things, really a good start to the season for Alabama women's basketball. We know they went to the Betty Chancellor Classic and had success. And then in the ACC-SEC Challenge, they were at Syracuse on Thursday night. And this was a down-to-the-wire game. Alabama wound up losing 79-73, but they played well. Syracuse is a good team. Sarah Ashley Barker led the way with 18 points and 8 assists. Elia Nye had 17 points and 5 steals. Alabama returns home to Coleman Coliseum tomorrow morning. It's the annual 5th grade fast break game at 11 a.m. The Coleman Coliseum will be packed, and you can see it on the SEC Network Plus. That is the stream. Well, still to come on TIT, everybody's favorite segment, Bama in the NFL. So stay tuned for that. And up next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, there's the phone number, 205-348-9882. You can email us, TITV@WVUA23.com. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV. All right, time for Bama in the NFL. Boy, Will Anderson getting after it. Gave the Broncos just major problems as an edge rusher. 2 sacks, 8 quarterback pressures, deflected pass that was intercepted, and Houston got the win over the Broncos. And Tua and of course, I love Waddle, don't get me wrong, but Tua and Tyreek Hill, I mean, that's almost unfair what they did to the Commanders. A couple of touchdowns, both over 60 yards, and that one is Miami won big. And there is the other one right there. And again, Waddle's in the mix too. But Tua and Tyreek, even though Tyreek didn't go to Alabama, he did play at Western Alabama, Rodney.
Alabama did recruit him.
Yeah. And what about Jameson Williams? He might be the fastest guy in the NFL. Did you see that speed around the edge? Gibbs was doing his thing too as the Lions beat the Saints. And here's J.K. Scott. We don't mention J.K. Scott much, but he set a Chargers franchise record, placing 7 punts inside the 20-yard line. as they shut out the Patriots. In 6-0 game, that punter right there was critical to the success. Did you even know that J.K. Scott was with the Chargers?
I did not.
He's had a long career. Also, Derrick Henry went over 100 yards with a couple of touchdowns before having an injury for the Titans against the Colts. All right, welcome back into TITV, Bama in the NFL. Every week it's just a sampling. You can't cover them all, right? We don't have enough time. It's unbelievable. All right, let's get to the phones. Rusty down in Demopolis, Alabama is with us. Hey, Rusty. Rusty, you with us? Rusty going once? Rusty, you got us? All right, Rusty wanted to know about Kool-Aid McKinstry and him leaving that game. He left that game with concussion symptoms. I don't know what his status is, but yeah, Amos came in and played really well, right?
Man, he really did. And, we talked about Trey Amos when he transferred here from the University of Louisiana, and Gary, just how he had a really great season his last year there at Louisiana. They thought he was the best player they had. Really were disappointed when he went into the portal. And, his development, the way he's progressed now since the very beginning of the year, he looked fantastic.
All right, let's go over to Birmingham and talk with Jeff. Hey, Jeff, good evening.
Hey, Gary. Hey, Rodney. I just wanted to know if Rodney, if you have any updates on how Alabama basketball recruiting is going, and I'll just hang up and listen. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, Jeff, you betcha. Rod, we were talking about while Jeff was on hold that basketball recruiting is so fluid right now with NIL and all that's going on. I will tell you this: the Tide's got 2 players committed. Aiden Sherrill is a 6'10" center out of California who they're really, really high on, and Naz Cunningham is a 6'7" wing. Rodney, at one time he was the #1 ranked player in the class of 2024. That slipped a little bit, but still very, very talented. Those are the 2 guys that they've got committed. They're going to probably wind up signing 2 or 3 more. Again, though, with the portal and the year-to-year nature of basketball recruiting, it's so much harder to follow it than it used to be. But we know this. Nadoch is going to recruit at a high level.
He is. And, we kind of profiled both of those players when they committed to Alabama, Gary. They fit the style that Nadoch likes. They're long, they're lean, they're athletic, they can shoot. All of those things.
All right, still to come on Tider Insider Television. Alabama track and field runners shortened their own school records. Or didn't shorten them, I guess they shattered them. How about that? And more on the program as far as our phone calls and emails are concerned. 205-348-9882. We'll be right back after this. Alabama track and field distance runners started the 2023-2024 indoor season on Saturday at the Sharon Cole Year Danville season opener at Boston University. Hilda Ole Moy Moy and Hillary Shirioyite both shortened their own school records. It was shortened in that tease. 3,000 and 5,000 meter runs. Shortened means you ran faster. Just a year later at the same meet, Hilda shortened her 5,000 meter school record by 0.53 seconds to earn a second place collegiate finish. Hillary opened with a 7th place school record performance in the men's 3,000 meter run with a time of 7 minutes and 45 seconds. Alabama will compete against Auburn in Birmingham for the Harvey Glantz Tide and Tigers dual meet on January 11th. My late friend Harvey Glantz was awesome.
What a great guy.
Yeah, what a great event there with Alabama and Auburn. Auburn where he went to school and Alabama where he coached. All right, let's jump out on the phone lines. Well, first we're going to do, I'll take that back. We're going to do our email question of the day. It's brought to you by KDM Service Corporation, serving your family like our family. Should Coach Saban be considered for Coach of the Year? I, for one, think so. That's from Perry. Absolutely he should. Now, the AP SEC Coach of the Year today was Eli Drinkwitz. I don't know if Coach Saban is going to win any of these awards. I think he's so good every year that he often gets overlooked for these things, right? Because people just take him for granted.
You know, you're right. But when you look at this year, Gary, and you look at the things they've overcome, the things they've achieved to this point, I really think that he deserves it. I think a lot of people say, well, Alabama's loaded with talent, and they are. They have a lot of talent. But this was a different team. He had to really develop this team and bring them along. I think he's the Coach of the Year.
All right, that's our our KDM Service Corporation email of the day question. All right, we're going to get to Eli here on the phone lines. Eli, go ahead.
Yes, I watch the program every week.
Thank you.
I just why Gary hadn't mentioned his blunder on the picks last week.
Oh, I don't mind mentioning it at all. Thank you, Eli. 27-24, I nailed it. I had Georgia winning the game, and as I said last week, I hoped I'm wrong. I never mentioned anything about reverse mojo, but I think Rodney might have known what I had in mind. I picked Georgia 2 years ago. Alabama won that one, so I'm more than happy to eat crow, Eli. And again, I'm not saying it was reverse mojo, but hey, if something works, stick with it.
Look, Gary, every time there's a big game, pick against Alabama.
All right, we'll be picking the Rose Bowl here in a few weeks. Another email, is that what I'm being told? Yeah, we're going to get to on the last play of the game. This is the Iron Bowl. Harry and Arnold appeared to have a pick six, but it wasn't counted. Did he step out of bounds, Jim, in Sparks, Nevada? Yeah, that's what they said. And same thing from Joe Tusk, who's basically, yeah, what they said, Rodney, I thought he scored. Usually the officials just get right off the field. I was told that there were a couple of Auburn staffers who were over there in the officials' ear. They didn't want it to count, even though it didn't affect the outcome of the game other than the score. But, I don't know. Here, I saw some people still pictures, but anytime you can make that look like you want it to look. They put it on the scoreboard. I was surprised that they caught him out of bounds, but they did. So it was 27-24 instead of 33-24.
And the bottom line is it really doesn't matter. Ultimately. But, again, I saw the still shot where his foot was out. But, again, like you said, it could have been doctored. I have no idea.
Yeah, but Alabama got the win, and he got the interception, and Alabama's in the college football playoff, and Auburn isn't. So that's it kind of is what it is. All right, we are going to come back and have more TITV for you right after this. Stay with us. All right, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, former Alabama linebacker Reuben Foster will work out with the Dolphins tomorrow morning. Listen, this guy was awesome for the Pittsburgh Maulers in the XFL. If Reuben Foster's healthy, I still think he can play in the league. Miami needs a little help at linebacker. I hope it works out. He had 53 tackles and a pick for the Maulers in USFL. I said XFL, it was the USFL. But, Rodney, remember he was a missile when he was in college. When he hit you.
Well, you saw some of the plays there. You could see when he made contact. Yeah. Remember the hit he put on Fournette on the kickoff return?
It's a different level of knocking somebody out, I can tell you that. So hopefully Reuben Foster makes it with the Dolphins. That'll be another Bama in the NFL guy to talk about if he can stick with them. They're all over the place. All right, that is going to do it for tonight's show. A reminder, you can catch a replay tonight at WVOA 23 on WVOA 23 at 10 o'clock. Or at 10:30, following the news at 10, and you can find it anytime at WVOA23.com. We're going to leave you with some footage from our 2023 SEC champions returning from Atlanta to Tuscaloosa on Saturday night. There they are. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll talk to you again next week on TITV.